Got Your Eers On is brought to you by Tactical Legion 9. All
right, everybody, hello and welcome to this week's episode of Got Your Eers On. Guido here along with Scoop and Johnson.
Guido, in the words of @Campbell, and then enough numbers to make the constant pie blush. I don't know what's up with this Twitter handle. It was an embarrassing day to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
Yeah, it was not pretty. WVU drops one in Ames, 31-14. Just want to go on the record, Johnson. What did I pick the final score to be?
You picked the final score of Iowa State 31, Mountaineers 17.
I couldn't get a field goal
You
there at the
couldn't
end.
you almost get it. A Casey Lake field goal would have put you.
Would have put me in.
Yeah,
I mean, WVU did what WVU does, folks, which is continues to play subpar football for a coach. And I think, Scooty, the biggest thing to come out of this, I've read it in a couple articles. Our buddy Jake Lance put it in his. There have been other people who've put it in their articles. The sideline, the fellas, the lads, if you will, if you're Bill Stewart, they did not have energy yesterday. They did not look like they wanted to be there. They didn't want to play that game. Neal Brown let them sleep in an extra hour in Ames, and that didn't seem to help at all. I mean, it was not great, Scoot.
The juice has been turned loose.
The juice has been turned off.
What happened to the old juice squad, Scoot?
I think it left with Al Pogue when it went back to Troy. Here's what I think, and I don't know. I'll throw some conspiracies out there. I think that after the Texas Tech game, which went poorly for us,
correct.
I think
that's an understatement.
Neal Brown took back over control of the offense.
Well, I want to interject there, Scoot, because you were on to something. Guido and I never want to give you too much credit for being on to something because we know it costs us. But last week on the show, you said something to the effect, you were saying, and actually it was before last week, it was during that Texas Tech game afterwards when we did our show after that game, you said, that game looked like Neal Brown kind of looked at Graham Harrell and said, hey, I know you like to do your thing, but let me interest you in some of my greatest hits.
Remember, let me show you what I did back in Troy. Let me show you what worked in Troy.
Right, and then we had
remember that one time I was playing Louisiana, Lafayette? Let me show you what worked there.
What's it going to take to get you into this bubble screen? Remember, we had that discussion, and at the time, we laughed at that because, man, it did look like that. Like, it totally looked like that, but that didn't totally compute with us, I think. I mean, why would that be the case? This game, once again, totally, I mean, there could be, Scoot, how could there be anything less air raidy about what we watched in Ames?
Let me spin this even worse, right? So JT Daniels hasn't looked himself lately, right? So people are wondering, is he hurt? Is he injured?
So you're right to talk on Twitter. People are openly wondering maybe he's injured. Like that's how different
I'm wondering. Here's a thought. Throw this out there. He's a kid. I mean, I don't know what he is, 22 probably at this point, 23 maybe even. So is his struggle the byproduct of maybe the discord that could be there, right? Like maybe
between coaches.
Right. Maybe he's a Graham Harrell guy because that's probably the reason why he's there. But he knows that Neal Brown's thrown in a bunch of these crap plays that Neal Brown likes to run. And he's struggling, like, he wants me to throw this stupid bubble screen. He wants me to throw this dumb slant again. Like, all right, let me show you how this isn't going to work.
Let me go off on this whole idea, though, of who's calling the plays, though. Because we said, when we watched the Pitt game, when we lost to Kansas, but that was a game, right?
Yeah.
The offense looked amazing in those games.
Yeah.
There was a lot of air raid. There was a lot of stuff happening, and we talked about. I can remember talking with you guys about like, hey, the defense is terrible, but at least the offense is exciting to watch, right? And
and we agreed, Guido, too, that we were like, JT Daniels is also the guy. Like, he looks super legit, arm talent,
Right.
putting it into space and the whole nine.
And so it seems like, this Texas Tech game happened. Everybody it was horrific, right? And now it's like the offense has completely changed. And is that and this is where I go back to Scooty's conspiracy theories. Like, is that because Neal Brown's making the plays, calling the plays now, making Graham Harrell or whoever run the bubble screen? Is that because people have figured Graham Harrell's offense or JT Daniels out the defenses? I don't know, but something's definitely different than it was a month and a half ago.
It's kind of funny. I think some of my conspiracy may be true. What also is kind of funny is I feel like that last drive of the game when they went with Garrett Green, it was probably like Neal Brown saying, go ahead, Graham, you call this last series, because all of a sudden we're throwing the ball down the field. We're, moving the ball. We, stacked up a couple of first downs. Like, is that something that happened? I don't know.
And it was crazy because in that second half there, we only had 3 total yards offensively. We only had 3 total yards before that series with Garrett Green in the second half.
And don't you just continue to feel like, Scoot, I just feel sorry for Garrett Green because he always, like, even in that, look, I know it's mop-up time, but I think our buddy Jake over at Smoking Musket, he had tweeted something at the time like, what I just saw in that series with Garrett Green was way more exciting than anything else I've seen this whole game. And I was sitting there watching the game thinking, yes, I totally agree with that. And isn't it, I say I feel sorry for Garrett because no matter what the situation, he comes in with energy. I feel like when he gets in the huddle, he sort of energizes everyone. Like, I can see him in the huddle like, look, I know this is garbage time, but screw it. Let's go down here and put 7 on the board and at least show that we can still put a drive together. And that's what they do. It just, I don't know. I feel sorry for the kid.
He's got an edge to him. And you saw in that last drive kind of what we saw in that Oklahoma game last year where,
yeah, right.
Like he's mixing the run. He was kind of tough to deal with. Like, he's a good quarterback. And there was even a scene where he ran over to the sideline to get the play or something from Neal Brown, and Neal Brown kind of gave him like a shove to the shoulder and threw him back on the field, like he was almost like ticked that he did something positive.
Cloney said that we were getting too excited and we were spiraling into a grass is greener spiral. And I thought, I don't know. Come on, that's
it's Cloney.
I think
it was mop up.
I think it was mop up time. But I do feel like at this point, if JT Daniels has, Scoot, look, my guy had a case of the floats my goats again this game, right? I mean, he doesn't look like himself. Like Guido said, he doesn't look like the guy we watched in the first 2 or 3 games. I don't know what it is. I hope he's not hurt.
Listen, we even got stories that he's a weird guy and that he wears pajama pants all around campus.
We did get a pajama pants story, yes. I feel like you made a ink pen Sharpie note about pajama pants.
I circled that one on the transcript. I was like, what the heck is this all about? Like, we don't hear these kind of stories. Usually we get he's been to 5 different colleges and he's from California and he's been to 5, but
Guido, if we don't get BFW making a huge adjustment on a terribly underthrown ball, we don't even get that 7 on the board.
Right.
We're talking about Garrett Green getting this touchdown in mop-up time. If we don't have him make an adjustment on a really, like, look, it was a bad ball.
And the defender, like, didn't hit the brakes. Like, he should have hit the brakes.
Exactly.
He kept falling.
I mean, come on. That's how bad it was.
Well, and I think it was interesting that after the game on Twitter, and as you guys know, we're huge on following WVU Twitter world. I thought it was interesting. Wolfman, who works for the university, right? He does broadcast stuff for WVU, posts a tweet with like a Excel spreadsheet, which had to make you very excited.
It spoke to me. Like, it literally grabbed my attention and spoke to me.
But it was basically comparing JT Daniels' first 8 games and Jarrett Daigie's first 8 games of last season.
Scoot, you may know him as the prolific Jarrett Daigie. Pay attention here.
And listen, they're almost identical.
Almost identical.
Johnson.
Yeah. Honestly, almost identical.
I mean, even to the fact that I think that it was Jarrett Doege had 100 more yards passing than JT Daniels.
So what that means is JT Daniels is prolific.
I think that's what we're led to believe here, Scoot. I think that Jarrett Doege had, I think Wolfman noted he had less attempts as well. So it's not a good, Scoot, it doesn't paint a good picture. It doesn't.
Well, this era of WVU football, what's sad for me to think about is a lot of the younger fans, like, you look at elementary school age kids that, when you guys became fans, this is what they've got to look at when they're kind of those formative years. We've been seeing now recently some of the former players start to enter their opinions on Twitter. And it's interesting to me, like, people get excited about some of the defensive players we've had here recently. Bruce Irvin, he tweeted about how he would have had, double the amount of sacks that...
the context, right. So the context for that was... They noted that Dante Stills, I think WVU Football tweeted out that Dante Stills now is tied with Bruce Irvin all time in sacks with 22.5. And Bruce was quick to note that he only played, I think, 2 seasons, where I think Dante may be on his fifth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, so that felt a bit salty for Bruce, but he does make a point. I mean, he would have been essentially Mean Joe Green.
Well, and then you and I've talked a little bit. One of your favorite players of all time is Carl Joseph.
Oh man, come on.
And I look at our defense, and I don't see anybody that resembles a Carl Joseph out there.
No, and I don't think, a lot of people...
I don't see anybody that resembles a David Long.
Well, a lot of people are giving... So there's a pretty healthy argument even this evening as we were getting ready to hop on here and record. There's a pretty healthy conversation going on right now about Jordan Leslie, and people saying, look, the argument being essentially, you can't suddenly want to fire Jordan Leslie when he's given you, I think the tweet said, incredible defensive seasons up to this point, and I don't know where that's coming from. Like, I know he had a really strong 2020. I would argue that was a weird season. We didn't even play Oklahoma that season, but I'm not saying it's bad, but
was there somebody else on the staff at that point that, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know that I would go as far. And I also don't understand, and we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but I don't understand how he gets a get out of jail. So people say, look, he's been decimated by the portal. Yes, he had, and I would hold that against him. Like, right. I don't know how he gets a get out of jail free card for.
He might be the reason for that.
Right.
Yeah,
right. That's what I don't understand.
He's been decimated by the portal. Well, that's because he's driven every good player off.
Right. I don't understand how he doesn't take responsibility for managing that. Yeah, that's weird.
So, anyways, we go into Ames. We get it handed to us. I mean, again, another situation. Defense, at the end of the day, the offense looked so bad that it made the defense look better, but the defense still looked bad. Right. Like, that was my problem with everybody. Well, the defense, Coach Brown in the post game, he's like, the defense hung in there. They really showed up today. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, Iowa State's been averaging 62 rushing yards a game, and they had 172 against us.
Yeah.
Yet another team that we give up, this time it was only 319 yards and not 40 points. I mean, kudos, guys. We still lost the game.
Well, and rush defense is supposed to be our stronger thing. Like, that was supposed to be kind of our bread and butter this year. We figured we'd give up some passing yards.
I just think that it's we don't have to get into it because we've been saying the same thing for weeks, and there's no reason to say the same thing again. The team is not there anymore, right? Like, they're not. I can't imagine these players are excited to show up to practice, excited to show up to these games. The energy is gone. Like, the juice is empty. Nobody went to the grocery store and got new juice. The juice is like, Scoot left the empty carton in the fridge.
Scoot, would you say the milk's gone bad?
Milk has gone bad. It is bad.
The milk has gone
listen, bad. It is so dire. We are so dire for a change to happen. I will say this again. I was an early adopter of not trusting any climbs.
Right. You were a climb denier.
Like year 2, I was thinking, you know what? This climb is garbage.
Right. You were a climb denier
is a gimmick.
From way back.
This is a gimmick. He's buying himself time because he's not sure what he's doing. And he's run out of time.
So let's talk about that, right? So obviously, another loss. WVU continuing to struggle. The chirping has continued to increase online and in news articles. Will Neal Brown be fired? You know, we record this show on Sunday evenings. I can tell you that right now, Johnson and myself are on like my tweet deck is reloading every second for it to see if it pops up. I personally think that if they don't do it by end of night Sunday, it's not happening this week, right? So
I don't know that that's true.
You think? I think it is true.
Here's the thing: there's several things going on, right? So the women's soccer team was in the Big 12 championship,
right?
Right. There's a very good chance that Shane Lyons is at that soccer game, or went to that soccer game. He's logistically probably not able to have a face-to-face meeting with Neal Brown to say, hey, Neal, thanks, but no thanks. So there's some things at play here that give us a little bit of like, okay, for me, it's got to be by Tuesday, by the press conference.
Do you think, gentlemen, that there's even more at play here than Scoot? Do you think there's more than just the head coaching job that may be changed this week, if a change is to be made?
Meaning that are you saying that Shane Lyons' neck is out there too?
I'm asking the question. Yes.
I think it's early to chop him. I think.
Do you?
Well, I think if he doesn't do something very soon, let's say we lose it again next week. Let's say he doesn't do anything this week. We lose again next week. If Neal Brown finishes out those last 2 games or whatever we have left, 3 games, I don't see it. I think Shane Lyons could be.
But what more do you need, Scoot? I mean, like, so that I don't disagree with you in terms of like a loss with Oklahoma, but don't you think? So my argument would be Shane Lyons has this. He has these cement shoes, unfortunately. I mean, I have nothing against Shane Lyons, but my point being, I'm just asking the question because this extension now becomes the worst of looks, right? This extension that we already thought was bad now becomes just the worst look.
Well, I'm going to say something. I agree with Scoot. And I'll say the reason I agree with Scoot is something that Scoot said. And this is like, and I don't like the fact, Jonathan, that this episode is a lot of like, hey, Scoot said weeks ago.
What are you doing?
I say what the people think. I will
say, Scoot said weeks ago that he thought if it happened, it would happen when we are no longer officially able to make a bowl game, right? So as of right now, there's not, but there is mathematically still a chance that we could be bowl eligible, right? We could win. I mean, a 5-win team can make a bowl game, and 6-win team will definitely get in a bowl game. We can still reach both of those. I almost agree with Scoot that if they lose to Oklahoma next week, and Oklahoma is this stinker of a team this year. Like if there was ever a year we were going to beat Oklahoma in Morgantown, it would be this year. And if we lose to Oklahoma next week, I think that.
And I think we're 7.5 point underdogs.
We're 8 or 7.5, depending on where you look.
So you're telling me that Scoot is leveraging math to make his argument. That's what you're telling me.
That is a frightening thought. But yes, that's what I'm saying.
Leveraging math.
The math don't lie. The math don't lie.
Well,
would you agree, Scoot? Like, would you agree with that statement?
I think,
that bowl eligibility is a big part of this.
If he's still coaching, if we get to the point where it is mathematically impossible for us to reach a bowl game, then I think he's toast.
Well,
I think then he's got no reason not to.
Scoot, guess what he would have to do to get to 6 wins?
Oh, he's going to have to win out, right?
Yeah, how many? In a row.
Three.
How many in a row?
And that ain't happening. It ain't happening. We don't do that. He don't do that. We do that.
What does
we do that? He don't do that.
You almost stumped Scoot with the math.
I'm leaning into
too.
the math now. Like, that's what I'm doing.
Back off the math. Math only works for me when I say the things. Don't make me apply it.
History has shown us that doesn't happen, right?
I just think that I'm not ready to say. I think Shane Lyons. I think the university will still give Shane Lyons an opportunity here to correct his wrongs. I guess I'll put it that way, right?
So I think the university, the board of trustees, the president, they're going to look at, yes, this football is a thorn in their side, but in general, athletics is okay, right?
Right.
They're in a strong conference that's financially stable. Basketball had a bad year last year. But they've got a Hall of Fame coach. The hope is that they're better this year. Baseball's done very well here in recent past. Soccer's doing well, both men and women's. Rifle's still doing well. So the other sports are doing well.
I don't disagree with any of that, Scoot. I guess I'm just making the argument. And I'm not saying I'm personally making this argument, but couldn't you see the argument be made from above saying
people want his head?
Hey, look,
people are ready.
Hey, bub, you just cost us $18 million from the athletic budget that we didn't really have to commit to, but you committed us to. That, to me, that's just becomes a terrible look. Well, I guess the other thing, and I'm not really disagreeing. I'm just being devil's argument, being devil's advocate here. If getting smoked, destroyed, dominated by a winless 0-5 in conference Iowa State team to make you the last place team in conference does not do it. I mean, to me, losing at home against Oklahoma is just just a further annoyance. It's not really, like, to me, what more needs to happen for you to make this decision? 3 in a row. You've now lost 3 in a row. You're 3-6. Like I said, you just got destroyed by an 0-5 in conference Iowa State team. I mean, come on.
Well, here's my question is, what is the advantage either way for WVU at this point, right? Like, the buyout's the buyout. The money's the money, right? So what's the advantage of firing him now or firing him at the end of the season, Scooty? Like, why would you do it now? Like, I understand the fans are starting to call for it. It makes you feel like you move the program, I guess, or you're hearing what people are saying. But, like, does it help you in the coaches market to get rid of him now? Does it? What changes between now, doing it now, and doing it December 27th? I guess is my question.
I guess if you do it now, one, you might get some people to show up to the last game of the season. So you may get some fan, some I guess, what's the word I want?
You think you're going to get more support from the fans to come to the stadium, more butts in the seats,
right? So financially, it could be to a benefit for you. I think it shows, again, the fan. It works to rebuild the trust of the fans, because we were trusting a climb that never happened. So now you got to try to rebuild the trust,
right?
So I think that there's some of that. From a coaching standpoint, here's what's going to happen. I mean, you're going to run an interim coach. It's going to be somebody probably still on this staff. I've heard a lot of people recently saying it's going to be Jeff Castile, which he's just an analyst. I think it'd be a little weird to toss that guy in.
I was going to say that too. Isn't that a little weird? I mean, I know we obviously know the history of Jeff Castile, but isn't it weird to look at the guy in an analyst position and say, "Hey, coach, he's
I know." Hey, I know you're used to having this guy just share some notes with you during meetings, but I would like him to be the voice now of the team. Like, you'd be like, what the heck? This guy told me, like, they run 5 guys on this side. Now he's going to be the boss?
Well, but Guido, wouldn't you didn't ask me, but I'm going to interject anyway. Don't you think I think the advantage, do it now. Like, so Brett McMurphy tweeted earlier, a couple hours ago, there's now 9 head coach openings for 2023. So you've got Arizona State, Auburn, Charlotte, Colorado, the list goes on. To me, I guess my argument would be why wait? The longer you wait, to get that process started, there's only X amount of available candidates you're going to consider. Some of those are, Auburn's on this list, Georgia Tech, Nebraska, Wisconsin,
South Florida now.
It's likely people that you are interested in are going to get gobbled up by people on this list. So that would be my argument, Guido, is why continue to wait? What's
Put
the
yourself
advantage?
in the best position to get the next coach instead of getting whoever's left.
Exactly.
Yeah, but there are not a lot of I guess I hear you. I guess there's not a lot of coaches. There's not a lot of guys out there that are making their decision prior to even the end of bowl season, let alone the end of regular season. I mean, I think you'll have some, obviously, but there might be some big names. There might be, and we've had this conversation offline. I don't think we've had it on the show, but like, who does West Virginia hire? Like, I mean, you're not. I don't know who West Virginia goes after. Hopefully, they've learned their lesson about going after a head coach that beat a big team once, but played in a small.
I think it's got to be a guy that is a Power 5 coach. Doesn't have to be a head coach, but could be like a coordinator, somebody that's recruited to that level.
But don't you almost think that you're going to want to get a guy who is on a big program that's maybe an offensive or defensive coordinator?
That's what I'm saying. You got to get a guy like that.
But so you're not hiring that guy. You're probably not hiring that guy because hopefully he's in a bowl game, right? So you're probably not hiring that guy until maybe late December, early November, or early January. Like, I don't know. I think the fact that we're at the point that I'm at a point where I think I would be shocked, Johnson, if Neal Brown was still the head coach come December 1st of this team.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Right, I agree. But I think I'm also now romanticized by Scoot's decision to use math to justify his, I'm now won over, I think, because at least then you can have a clear line in the sand, now we are no longer bowl eligible. Now we are moving on, in earnest.
Well, and that may be what he's waiting for. I really don't know. That might be what because he did say we need to continue to make bowls and wanted to win more games. So, hey, this was a hard line here we had that we told you needed to make a bowl game and you didn't. Would you be outraged? You said you'd be shocked.
I'd be shocked if he is still the coach at December 1st. I'll be outraged if he's still the coach on January 1st. How's that? I think that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, that's fair. I can't
imagine let's be honest. I mean, none of us, and Scooty's like the one was the most negative Nelly of the three of us. None of us picked this team to finish with only 3 wins. None of us did.
No.
And we're on that path right now. I mean,
well, here's the thing. Oklahoma might be the only chance they've got at another win. And I don't feel good about that.
They're underdogs right now. I think the RPI from ESPN was something like 44% chance of winning or 43% chance of winning.
The only thing good that's going to happen to WVU this weekend is I'll be there.
Scooty will be at the game. Johnson will be at the game. Guido will not.
That's the only good thing. That's the only good thing that's going to happen this weekend is that I'll be there.
I mean, if anybody wants to give you their tickets, you will sit in their seats for them.
Scoot, over under on number of West Virginia dogs you eat from the concession stand Saturday. And do they
when
contain
you say
coleslaw?
West Virginia dog,
do they contain coleslaw?
No, there's no way. No, listen, folks. I live in West Virginia, but I do not eat the dog with the sauce and the slaw and all that jazz. That's not how I was raised.
So how many modified West Virginia dogs do you go after Saturday?
Ooh.
Over under. I'm going to go with 2.5.
Well, I'm going to say under. I'm saying under the 2.5.
Under. Okay. All right.
He's watching his
Yeah, what's
figure.
up with that?
He's got to watch his figure.
Listen, I can't have more than 2 hot dogs and then 2 or 3 pretzels.
Oh, I see. I didn't realize you were going to call an audible and go soft pretzels on us, but okay, that's fine.
So as we record, Neal Brown's still the head coach, guys. We face Oklahoma on Saturday. Right now, the spread in that game, I think we just said it. Most places have it at 7.5. Some places have it at 8. The over-under at almost everywhere is 65.5 points for that game. I'm tired of picking these games because I don't even remember what I picked. I'm sure I picked a loss for Oklahoma at the beginning of the season. I'll continue to pick a loss.
Here's the thing. Like, you can't even do it now because what was a good thing for us is no longer a good thing for us. So you don't, like, you would have been able to say, oh, we'll probably put up 35 points. We can't do that. So what is good? I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what numbers to, like, is JT Daniels going to throw like he would rather be in a dentist chair? Which is what it's been like. I mean, and he doesn't have, he's not a very, like, outwardly excitable guy to begin with. Like, I mean, I don't want to be too critical of the guy, but he does not come across like a vocal leader. Right. So
yeah, he's not Garrett Green, and I'm not saying that is a bad thing. I'm just saying that he's not Garrett Green in the fact that he's not like pumped up and pushing the guys,
telling
right?
guys where to go and pointing things out and stuff. He just seems to be kind of methodical.
Cool, he's calm, he's collective. Yeah,
but tell me, Guido, how to reconcile. So before we pick this Oklahoma game, because I know that's where you're heading, what I cannot reconcile. Tell me how to reconcile these Texas Tech, now Iowa State road games where we don't even look like we go to these road games like we just found a group of people to put together on a roster and handed them jerseys like they've never played together before. Reconcile that with you beat Baylor at home.
Right.
You came back and played toe-to-toe with TCU somehow. Like what is it not the weirdest thing to look like? Going on the road is tough. We talk about that in basketball too. It's tough, especially when you're in this situation. Travel is weird. You're crossing time zones. Like, I get it, but how could the chasm be that far apart between I go to an away game? You know, we looked lost in Austin. We put some cosmetic points on the board late. We got destroyed at Texas Tech in Lubbock. And before Garrett Green tacks on 7 in this Iowa State game, we get destroyed again in this away game in Ames. I think it's weird, but I actually think this ends up, they get a bit of their mojo back, Scoot, just simply because they're at Milan Puskar Stadium. I'm not saying they win, but I don't think it's it's not 7 points. JT Daniels throws for 82 yards or whatever. I think there's more there. I don't really understand why, but I think there's more there. I think they perform a lot better at home.
I guess, Johnson, what I'll say to you is that I think that the TCU game was an outlier. Like, if you look back at it, the TCU game's pretty much an outlier in the last handful of games, in the sense that I think TCU came into that game, and we said it before. We thought TCU thought it was a trap game, right? TCU thought that they were coming into a game that they didn't have to show up. They could have played, with their eyes closed and beat WVU. And I think that was TCU's mistake, right? Defense did look a little bit better. Offense didn't look as bad as they looked some other times. I think after the Texas Tech game, TCU was like, "Oh, this is going to be a breeze. We ain't got to do anything. Like, we're just going to like walk into the stadium and they'll give us touchdowns." I think that didn't happen, and that's why that game is sort of an outlier. Outside of that, I mean, the Baylor game, we put up a ton of points, but since then we've changed our offense. We give up 1 million points. I mean, Oklahoma is scoring more than Iowa State is scoring. I mean, Oklahoma's lost games, but they put 35 up on Baylor. They put 40 something up on Kansas or 50 something up on Kansas when they beat them.
Yeah, right.
But here's the thing. This is where I think the problem is with WVU and at the point of the season that we're at. And everybody's talked about Neal Brown and how great of a recruiter he is, and I think he's recruited some interesting guys, and there's been, whatever. There's no depth on this team, and that's what's happened this year, right? Like, people have gotten hurt. You had the whole secondary decided to transfer. The one guy that was decent playing for you in the secondary, Woods, he gets hurt, right? And he hasn't had a season practically because of injury. I think that there's no depth to this team, and now you're in the dog days of your season, and there's nobody to play. And we talk about friend of the show, Mark Rucker, walk on, right? Those guys, those guys like Mark Rucker who are walk-ons, they never travel. It takes a lot for those guys to get to travel. He traveled this week to Iowa. He didn't get to see the field, but he traveled this week because of injury and depth issues, right? There's not enough guys. And I think it's really going to rear its ugly head because as bad as Oklahoma has had it this year, they are putting yards up. They are scoring points. Scooty, this Oklahoma game that you boys get to go to and I can't, is going to be the first time WVU gives up 50 points this year.
Ooh, spicy. So you're calling it a 50 bomb.
Yeah. I think it's going to be I'll go 55 to WVU scoring 21. And 14 of those will be, something at the end of the third or sometime in the fourth quarter. Like that's how I this team is gone. And I think between how bad things are, I think how bad the press is going to be this week, especially if they don't fire Neal Brown, because all they're going to talk about is firing Neal Brown. The team's lost. He's lost the team. The guy,
Well, you got to think those guys have got to be thinking exit strategies.
Right. They're not thinking about the game.
And players.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So the assistants have got to be thinking, oh, crap. It's because if Neal goes, they're gone. So they've got to be thinking, okay, who can I reach out to?
Right.
And I know they're not supposed to. You're not supposed to, but it's your livelihood. So you've got to be thinking that in the back of your head.
I agree. I don't see this as being good. So, yeah, I'll go 55-21 Oklahoma this week. Scooty, what are you thinking?
That's a good question because I don't feel either team is very good. Oklahoma will beat us. I'm going to give them 45 points. And I feel we score 20. 45-20.
So you're keeping it under 50.
I don't think it's going to be 50.
That's interesting. I mean, I
think we'll get a turnover. That's why. One turnover.
Dylan Gabriel Johnson, who is the quarterback.
Oh, I forgot about him. Yeah.
For Oklahoma.
He's back now, right?
Yeah. And he's fourth in the Big 12 right now in average yards a game. He is third in efficiency, passing efficiency. I will say that Dylan Gabriel's stats and JT Daniels' stats don't look that different, with the exception of the fact that JT Daniels this season has thrown 8 interceptions and Gabriel has only thrown 4 interceptions. So I don't know, Johnson. What do you think the score is going to be this week?
I don't know. I'm going to stick to my gut feeling that they perform a little bit better. I'm not saying they perform great. Hopefully Scoot and I have something to watch. I think Oklahoma still wins, but I'm going to go Oklahoma 37, Mountaineers 27.
We may have something to watch if they bring that. What's that? The red panda, or what do they do at the basketball games with the lady with the?
She can be out there spinning the plates.
Can we get the red panda at halftime?
Well, let me ask you guys a question. So Guido, you went with 21 points out of the offense. Scoot, you said 20. I'm going with 27. How many of those points do you think come with Garrett Green in the game?
Ooh.
I'm making the assumption, do you agree that Garrett Green makes an appearance? And if so, how many of those points are with him leading the squad?
Well, I think for me, 7. I think he's a touchdown, at least.
That's a good question. I might actually go more than that.
Really?
I'm going to go. I think he is going to be involved somehow in 14 of my
of your 21. Wow.
And I'm wondering if one of them will be Garrett Green catching or running for a touchdown.
Which seems like they've been trying to force into the repertoire lately.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Johnson?
Well, I brought it up because I think of my 27, I'm going to give Garrett 10 of those from the quarterback position.
He's going to kick one? Is that what you're saying? He's going to kick 3 points?
No, I mean, while he's leading the squad,
Oh, while
you
he's
know,
quarterback.
they're going to get 10
I'd like to
points
see
with
him
him. I mean, at this point, I don't think Casey needs any help, but I think I'm saying that with him manning the QB position, though, he'll be responsible.
It would be a Neal
for
Brown thing. We're trying to find ways to get Garrett Green involved.
Casey Legg
So we thought
tosses him the ball and he rugbies.
We didn't like the
something.
way Gross House was doing the kickoffs, so we thought we'd give Garrett a run.
I will tell you, if there is any high this year for WVU, it is the kicking game. I mean, the kicking game has been on point this year.
Oliver had one dud of a punt, if I recall. It was like
he
a
did have
30
one
Well,
dud
but
on
he
Saturday.
had a busy day.
But he also had one that was 65 too. So he had a couple of good ones.
I'm tired.
Some questionable return decisions by those Iowa State returners as well. But so
There
Ollie
was some
went.
Bronx cheers.
Ollie went for what, 10 punts in that game Saturday, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he was on pace. Yeah, he was on pace for at one point. I think Scooty
12.
was doing the math.
He was on 12.
He was on pace for like 12 to 14 punts. It was rough, boys. Well, we'll see what happens. Hey, some other WVU football stuff, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Traylon Ray, 4-star wide receiver, commits to WVU. WVU's recruiting class for next year is already ranked 26th nationally, Scoot. But we're all sitting here talking about how the coach needs to be.
Well, here's the thing. Right?
Scoot, can I say one thing before you give your opinion?
Sure.
Because let me spice it up. Because Guido's leading the witness a bit, which I love. Because I want to jump in on this too. Because there was a whole Twitter thing after this commitment came back of all these people say, all these Twitter scoffers. So I'm going to call them the scoffers. WVU Twitter scoffers coming out tweeting, and these guys want Neal Brown to be fired. And I was like, we're all happy about this wide receiver commitment. There's no doubt, right? Like, look, let's not water that down. But I think in the stack of things on the worry list right now,
I'm not worried about guys that aren't here yet. He can't coach the guys that are here. So when they get here, there's not much going to be coming from them, right? That's the concern.
Right.
Is that. Great, you got them here. Now can you coach them? The answer appears to be no.
To be
so
determined.
why?
That just made me so, I don't know, that made me laugh so hard, Guido, because people were like, and there's people out here that want Neal Brown fired. I was like, what are we doing here?
And that's to say that another coach couldn't bring in better talent or more exciting talent.
Well, and we to be honest with you, it's probably Tony Washington, the wide receivers coach, that's standing off to the side like, oh, by the way, I did a little work on this too. Hello.
How about, let's say now, and of course it's a pipe dream. So we've got this 26 rated class or whatever.
Yes.
Let's just say, for some reason, and I'm not sure why, Coach Prime was hired as.
Oh my gosh!
Let's just say, listen.
You want Coach Prime so bad.
I would love Coach Prime. So, if we got Coach Prime, you don't think we'd have recruits?
Oh, of course.
My voice is, that's what I'm saying.
Of course
so
we
these
would.
Twitter people need to just because we don't have Neal Brown, I don't listen. He's not winning games.
But remember how a couple shows ago, Guido, we talked about don't congratulate the guy for stuff that he's supposed to do. Now, look, I get this is a 4-star. That's not an everyday occurrence. But my point is, you would expect them to be bringing talent in. The house can't be burning, but then you're staring out the front door like, wow, the lawn looks great. You can't that's coming along well. I mean, you would expect.
That's a good analogy.
That's a very good analogy.
As part of a healthy, successful program, you would just be expecting them to be bringing recruits in, right? I mean,
to those Twitter scoffers,
they were scoffing. Scoot.
My question to them would be: can Traylon Ray win 3 games in a row? Because if he can, then I'm all excited about it. If he cannot win 3 games in a row for us, then I'm not that big. It's nothing to us right now.
Well, and to your point, let's how about we worry about what's here, the here and now? We have plenty of here and now. Like, that's great. And I'm glad.
I'll also say this. It's a miracle that this kid wanted to come to us, because right now, if you watched our games, hey, you're going to bubble screen you. Great. Like, listen, are you comfortable running 5 yards, turning and then catching? Okay, good. We'll take you. Like, come on.
This kid runs a beautiful bubble screen.
Yeah, I mean,
are you comfortable doing all the work? Because the quarterback's not going to throw you open.
But I mean, that is very, and like, how do you, if you're a recruit right now, how do you watch, especially offensively, how do you watch this team over these last games and be like, even understand what the offense is?
Well,
right?
And Scoot, we saw, who was it that you pointed out that's been showing off all his Arkansas gear?
Justin Benton.
Yeah. So,
He's a commit to WVU, but here lately he has been hot and heavy with the Arkansas staff, and
showing his stuff.
So I'm willing to bet that there are going to be several that are going to flip. But again, once we do get a new coach in, some of the kids that have committed to that guy or whoever that person is, they're probably going to flip to us. That's just the nature of the game. And with the way the portal is, hey, like, maybe we should start winning some of those battles in the portal. We don't right now. We lose them. So if we get a new coach in, maybe things go our way. Maybe all of a sudden, instead of getting guys from middle of nowhere community college, we start getting guys that are Division I, Power 5 transfers.
Yeah, but I mean, you know as well as I do, Scooty, like, sometimes it is about the player, right? It is about how good they are and what they can do. But sometimes it's about being able to put the right guys together to make the right sauce. You know what I mean? Just don't put it on your hot dog. But, like, I think that's the part that is missing right now is between what's happened with the defensive.
You say we got the wrong chef.
I'm just saying, like, in your mind, Scooty, they're putting way too much, like, slaw on the hot dog right now, right? So it's like they got to figure out what to do.
Whatever they're doing, it's giving me heartburn.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, as we're doing the show here, I look over, and trending right now on Twitter is Shane Lyons. Like, just Shane Lyons is trending on Twitter right now.
Okay. All right. Solid.
And like half of the tweets about it are, one, when Shane Lyons going to talk about the football coach situation, and two, why hasn't Shane Lyons tweeted to congratulate the women's soccer team for being Big 12 champs for 5 of the last 12 years?
The rest of the free world is wondering, who the hell is Shane Lyons?
Who's Shane Lyons?
Because unless you're a WVU person, nobody knows who Shane Lyons is. Let's be honest. Like,
I think that we're just going to go. I think it's going to be an interesting couple weeks, fellas. I do. I really think it's going to be an interesting couple weeks to talk about WVU. I've already said this. We're recording Sunday night. The show gets released late Sunday. It could be tomorrow. You're listening to it, and the guy's been fired. We'll try to have an emergency podcast midweek, maybe.
Well, and Guido, remember, we had a run there where you could almost be assured news would break Monday morning. Remember that?
We'd finish the pod. Yes, exactly. We'd finish the podcast.
It would be very apropos if that were done.
We're doing this for you, fellas. We're doing this. Yes, we're doing this for the WVU fans. So, a couple of other things just to wrap up. WVU does play basketball still. Did you guys know that?
I heard that.
There's a basketball
I've heard
that. They play basketball. They actually start their regular season Monday night, tomorrow night, against Mount St. Mary's. That game's on ESPN Plus in the Coliseum. 7 p.m. is the tip. I don't think you're going to see much from this game. I mean, it'll be interesting. I still think it'll be, rotation central for this team. But it's at least a start. Then we move on. And Friday, we play in the zoo, Scooty. We go to Pitt, and we play them on Friday. That game's on the ACC network, ESPN. So you gotta have the ACC network to be able to watch it.
Jeff Capel recently, and I don't know, I haven't really followed it too closely, but 2 of their players are out for some reason. I don't know if they were injured. I don't know if they were suspended, but there are 2, I guess, prominent players that are not. They were out for an undetermined amount of time for Pitt. So it'll be interesting to see if they're back.
Well, and Guido, Pitt, this Pitt team ranked. They were chosen 14th out of the 15 ACC teams.
That's not high.
in this poll, in the 2022 preseason poll. So anyway, I don't expect a lot out of them. They had a super rough season last year, and I think that looks like people expect that to carry over. So I hope it carries over Friday night, because I'd love to beat those guys.
Yeah.
And as the season starts, guys, I guess one thing that came out that kind of depressed me, and this came from our good friend Josh Witt from Unnecessary Doubt.
Decisions. Unnecessary decisions.
Unnecessary Decisions, Unreasonable Decisions. No, the Unreasonable Doubt podcast, Josh Witt. Check it out if you haven't already. Joe Lunardi put out a thing where he kind of talked about his WVU basketball in a decline. WVU's picked 9th in the Big 12 this year. WVU has never even come close to having back-to-back losing seasons under Huggins. And the best comment with the whole thing is Lenardi said there could be some unpleasant whispering in Morgantown. In the comments.
Joey Brackets needs to stick to brackets and turtlenecks, because that's what he does best.
I mean, it's just interesting because, like, at this team right now, and we've talked about it last week on the show, is a severe bubble team. Like, they really got to make something happen in order to be in the NCAA. Ken Palm has them like in the mid-high 70s, low 80s. They're picked 9th in the Big 12. They're not ranked. They didn't even get any votes to be ranked right now. So I just think a lot has to happen, Scoot, in order for this team to launch.
Give it time. Give it time. I have some faith. I think we're going to hit our stride once we get Jose eligible. I think we'll be okay.
I mean,
I think we'll be all right.
I hope you're right. I mean, and on top of that, Scooty, they're trying to make the Big 12 harder. They're trying to make the Big 12 a tougher basketball conference, because there's talks of adding Gonzaga into the mix in the next couple of years.
Well, here's the question. Is it making the Big 12 tougher, or is it making Gonzaga's life a lot tougher?
Yeah, well, I mean, someone pointed out if this were to happen, then the Big 12 would have the 1 through 4 finishers in the 2020 through 2022 Ken Pomeroy rankings, which I think is just insane. I think the more intriguing thing here, Scoot, is, or at least the bigger question I have, because I have a lot of old Big East anxiety built into my soul, like the three of us do. I know I'm not the only one. This has led to some additional talks of having basketball only members in the Big 12. I mean, some of it's only speculation, but a lot of people think if you ask Gonzaga, you may ask at least one more basketball only participating member. And what is your reaction?
Okay if it was Villanova?
Oh, I would love that, but I would also have the heebie-jeebies a little bit, right? Because then I don't like this. My old Big East anxiety comes back, where I don't know that I love that makeup of a conference again.
I'm okay with basketball only members. However, I'm not okay if, like, I don't think this would ever happen, but let's say we have a Thursday night game at Central Florida, and then we turn around and have a Saturday afternoon game in Spokane, Washington.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
right. Travel.
What in the world is that?
Well, and I guess the argument would be, a lot of people would be dealing with that basketball travel.
If you're Central Florida, how thrilled are you to go to Spokane, Washington?
Right. Well, I don't know.
Does that become their rival?
I think it's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see how the Big 12 plays this. Guido, don't you think it's weird that if you told 2 years ago us that the Big 12 would not only have a really nice looking, newly minted TV contract in their back pocket, but now they're also in a position of seeming strength to go out and shop themselves to maybe some potential new additions to the conference. 2 years ago, us would have laughed in your face, right?
Right.
I think that's interesting.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Gonzaga would be a big get for the conference. I think it would make it very interesting. I don't think if I was Gonzaga, I'd want to do it, though. I mean, they play, San Francisco, University
Pepperdine.
of, yeah, right. They play. I don't even know these schools that they play. It's like, that's why Gonzaga is, wins.
I'm surprised
35 games a year because they play nobody.
I'm surprised we're not trying to get, and maybe we are, it's just not been talked about as much. Like, I guess if you're going west, for me, of the schools that are out there, I guess I would try to go after like an Oregon.
Yeah, get those Pac schools.
Yeah, like Oregon's probably got the biggest draw of the ones that are not, but maybe they're trying to go somewhere else. I don't know, but that's what I would do.
Yeah. Well, I think Guido, I agree with Guido. I think in Hugs, so a lot of people made, and Scoot, I think that's where your original comment was coming from. So Hugs made a comment that a lot of people took notice of, that he thought that would be an awakening for Gonzaga if they joined the conference. And I think, look, there's no denying Gonzaga is good. They're obviously good. They're extremely good, but they don't have to, I think Hugs' point being, they don't have to deal with that grind all season. You know, you spend 18 games beating the crap out of each other through a conference schedule. That's much different, Guido, than like you're saying, playing the San Francisco Dons or the Gales of St. Mary's or whatever.
And it's one thing to travel in the non-conference part of your schedule. That's the fall. You've got some holidays and stuff, so there's a lot of break and stuff. It's another thing when you're Gonzaga and you've got to go to Lubbock. Then you've got to turn around and you got to go to Cincinnati. Then you got to turn around and you're going to have to go to
well, like you said,
TCU,
Central Florida. I mean, there's
Central Florida,
huge
Houston.
mileage.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what happens. Well, guys, we should probably wrap it up for the week. Listen, don't forget, you can find us online. Look for us on Instagram and Twitter at Got Your Ears. And also look for us on our website, gotyourearson.com. Johnson is kind of the hub of everything.
Yeah, it is. We'll post this show with our show notes if you want to check out the links on the website. We'll also put the link to the TuneIn stream right there on the website. You can click on that and listen immediately. And you can also click through to the Got Your Ears On merch store. Check out our merch.
Yeah, definitely. Check it out, gotyourearson.com. Listen, WVU plays Oklahoma on Saturday. That game's on Fox Sports 1. That's a noon kickoff on Saturday. There's a lot of time between now and Saturday, boys. You might get an emergency podcast this week. I mean, you never know what could happen. I mean, I think we're going to keep an eye on it. A lot of WVU fans out there keeping an eye on it. We'll see what happens if Neal Brown makes it another week as the head coach for the Mountaineers. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week or sooner with another show. You've been listening to Got Your Ears On.